Rivalry week. Time for some keys to the game.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports' Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen today, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Lars, we got a really fun show coming at all the Everydayers on this Friday. It's Black Friday. It's the final regular season Keys to the Game show of the year. We'll have a bowl game, but obviously that's going to be a little bit different. So as all the Everydayers know, to anybody who might be new to the channel, hey, welcome. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Like the video, comment. If you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review. It all helps out a lot, but it's a really fun format we got. At the end of the show, we got our bold predictions. We got Lars's always accurate score prediction. We got defensive keys to the game, but as always, we start on the offensive side of the ball. And Lars, you said something to me right before we hit record. You said, hey, let's go about this like there is just going to be one quarterback. We're going to just name a starter. We're not hearing anything. This is just our prediction. We talked about it earlier in the week. We think it might be Damon Williams this week. So all our offensive keys are going to be discussed under the assumption that Damon Williams is the starting quarterback.
Exactly, because my first key, as I told you before this, is since Damon in this principle, I'm going to continue the caveats here, but just, again, working with the assumption that Damon is the starter. The one key to making this decision pay off, because Jedd talks about it every time, is get points in the first drive, get Damon in rhythm on the first drive. He actually has not attempted a pass on the first drive this season, even on one play, even coming in for one play against Weber State or Eastern Michigan or any team. He's come in on the second and third drive a couple of times, but he's never actually started a game, which is why I asked Jedd, hey, what's your confidence level? And he's like, yeah, total confidence in Damon. Confidence aside, there's plays that Damon has shown this season where it's like, just get him in rhythm, get the ball out, check down, quick slant, whatever you want to do. Just get Damon in rhythm where he's, 4-6, 5-7 at the end of the first drive, or maybe 2 plays into the second drive, because you're not going to shoulder the burden on Damon. But if this is going to work in any way, you have to get Damon in rhythm early on.
Absolutely. And so that kind of plays into what my first thing is, because it's finding a way to mitigate Oregon's defensive line, which, as we talked about earlier in the week, Damon gives you the best chance to do that in one way or another. And I think the most important thing with all this is finding ways to stay ahead of the sticks. And with Damon, that's getting him out of the pocket. It's running bootlegs. It's running things to keep the defensive line off balance, whatever that might be. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of the zone read with Jonah Coleman, and just finding ways to make sure that you can make plays and you're going to have a little bit of time to throw the football. Because I think that there are some ways that Damon might be able to take advantage of this Oregon secondary. I look at Denzel Boston. I look at Jeremiah Hunter, Giles Jackson, Kaleki Latu, whoever it is you want to say. And I say, I don't know if this Washington receiver corps necessarily has an advantage, but I think it's a lot closer than some of these Oregon fans might lead you to believe. And I think also the line on this game might lead you to believe. But the question is, are you going to have time to throw? That's been the biggest thing all season long. We look at, all these big losses on the road. You look at Iowa, you look at Indiana, Penn State. It's all getting pressure with 4 guys. That's what's happening over and over and over again. So if Oregon finds a way to do that, if you can find a way to counter that with Damon, that's going to be critical in this game.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that kind of just builds off of both points is this is more of an offensive key for Jedd. Empty the tank. Whatever is in that playbook, whatever you need to make this thing work, we'll get to it in the third segment, whether you win the game or not, at least make it a competitive game at halftime and make it a respectable game at the end of the game, or at the end of the fourth quarter, where you're talking about what it's been the past 5-6 years, 2-possession game at the most. Maybe, if you lose by 13, cool. It's okay. You can swallow that pill a lot easier than 35-6, 40-16, where it's really 40-9, I think, right? Because, or whatever it was, 8-9, whatever, because Grady had the 2 kicks before Damon had the touchdown against Iowa. And you just look at all in the Indiana game, obviously, don't turn the ball over. It goes without saying, but we'll get to that in a point. But all of this leads to when Jedd has said, Damon has everything at his disposal in the playbook. There might be some things we call for Will that I'll call for Damon that I won't call for Will. That excuse is going to not be there if Damon starts
Sure.
this game and plays more than, let's just say, 20 snaps, which we fully expect him to do. In that principle, then I'm not saying you have to get creative and do the double, triple, quadruple pass, the, whatever you want to call. I'm not saying go, crazy with this thing here, but there's plenty that I think Damon brings to this team aside from the zone read, and you maybe get Keith Reynolds on a fly sweep, the line Damon X, Y, and Z. There's many different things you can do to get the defense spread out and kind of mitigate the pass rush, just break down Oregon's defense. Jedd undid the retweet, but, Dan Lanning has showed how he defends the RPO. I would assume Jedd has a way to counter that, and maybe some ways we haven't seen this season. And I think this is the perfect weekend to do it because you're like we've been saying, your bowl opponent ain't going to be better than the number one team in the country. It might not even be a top 25 team. So if Jedd's going to go into the offseason saying, hey, look what we did against Oregon, you got to empty the playbook.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's pulling out all the stops. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily a key to the game for me, but that's something that's really important in this game, because you talk about, like, it's silly to say this at the end of the 2024 season, but it's all about finding ways to build for next season. And what better confidence booster than going on the road to your arch rival, who's also the number one team in the country right now, and finding ways to consistently score points, build confidence for a young offense where a lot of these guys are going to be back next year. Like, I look at the offensive line. I look at Denzel Boston. I look at some of these other pass catchers, Jonah Coleman, who Jedd has talked about coming back, and then obviously Damon Williams. You look at all those guys, and it's just finding ways to make sure that you build that confidence and you build that chemistry to make sure that when you go on the road in 2025, whether your first road game is going to be in Pullman or wherever else it's going to be beyond that. I know that, Wisconsin, Michigan, UCLA, and Maryland, those are the other road games next season. But outside of, Michigan and Wisconsin will be tough, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to be as tough as what this team is right now, and what Oregon is going to be, because they're the number one team in the country. So finding ways to just get everybody in rhythm and make sure you're all on the same page. And I don't know the best way to say this. Let's just call it the most complete road game you've played all year. Find a way to make it that on the offensive side of the ball, because we know what Jedd is. We know he's an offensive-minded guy who's going to be calling plays for as long as he is the head coach at Washington. These are things that we're going to see. And for the foreseeable future, that's probably going to be with Damon Williams at quarterback. So let's see what that looks like on Saturday.
Exactly. It's about setting a tone. And I think the other part of that goes, get Adam Muhammad, Jonah Coleman the ball early as well. And that kind of feeds off of, empty the playbook, take out all the stops, whatever you want to say. Like, this is the game, to use your point of, okay, I know nobody wants to hear it for the 10 millionth time, but, building for 2025, this might be the game that Jedd points to, because, if you play, let's just say, Central Michigan in the Las Vegas Bowl, or the Sun Bowl, or whatever the bowl matchup ends up being, but it's, it's certainly no superior team like this. Looking at that 26 class of recruiting and guys in the transfer portal and all that, don't you want to sell them on, hey, at our best, when we finally put it together, yeah, let's run with the theory that Washington somehow pulls this one off. Idaho showed them it's close. Boise State showed them it's close earlier in the season.
Wisconsin a couple weeks ago.
Exactly. So, and now were those on the road? Yeah, but again, the point right. But the point being that exactly Wisconsin. But the point being that there's a gettable team somewhere now. They're very good. That's why they're the number one team in the country. But Dan Lanning has shown that he's made mistakes in games like this before at Autzen and at Husky Stadium. So it doesn't matter where Oregon is; it's about where Washington is at. And I think,
right.
The energy that I thought I was going to see coming out of the tunnel in State College, I really hope I see this Sunday or the Saturday coming out of Autzen Stadium, because that whiteout experience and everything like that was like, hey, this is the game. Like, hey, you guys want to show that you're on the map. Okay, Penn State's in a different league. They're a top 5, top 10 team, but they're a differently built team. Oregon. You faced a lot of these guys before, not Dillon Gabriel, et cetera, et cetera. But no, Whittington, had a mark on his game in 22, and, Jordan James can probably make a mark in 23 and 24. But all this leads to if Jedd's going to go into an offseason selling something, I think this is when you put it all together. And I'm not saying they didn't or were intentionally not putting it together before, but it's like there's no reason why, if Damon's your guy next year, why not let him roll with? You spent an entire year getting him ready. Why not at the very end make the most of it and potentially come back home from Eugene with a win?
Right. Lars, let's move over to the defensive side. right after message from our good friends over at Game Time, because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, which is great news for anybody. Now that Husky football season is winding down, you want to go check out the Husky basketball team. You want to check out the Seahawks, the Kraken. There's so many great deals that you can find over on Game Time because the Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. With all-in pricing, if you toggle this feature, it shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And with their seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Lars, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball here. What's the number one key to containing an Oregon offense that's certainly been able to do whatever it wants against some good defenses this season?
So I know you would think it would be stop the run, kind of, force one-dimensional. For me, it's get Dillon Gabriel off his mark. We saw against Michigan State. It's why I asked Spencer, what happened against Michigan State and things like that. Dillon Gabriel is good. He's not Michael Penix. And I know that it might be a trigger-happy word for some Oregon fans here, but when you watch the two throw, it's like, yeah, Dillon Gabriel's good. He got a 200-yard game, like a couple 300-yard games, so he's not a lethal, prolific 350, 400 type of guy. Not that maybe he couldn't be down the road, but he just doesn't profile as that right now. So it's about he's a high completion percentage guy, kind of like Jedd Fisch's offense wants to be, where it's, hey, just get the ball into space, get the ball into Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Terrence Ferguson, et cetera, make them work. Part of that means get pressure on him and don't allow those passes. Get your hand up if you're Sebastian Valdez. Get your hand up if you're Zach Durfee, if he plays. Isaiah Ward. All these guys, but we've seen them. I think it was against UCLA a couple of times where you had 2 or 3 batted balls on back-to-back drives or almost on the same drive. I can't remember which one it was. And Russell Davis, same sort of thing, where it's like, look, you have a plethora of guys in that front to get the ball, get their paws up, and Khmori out throw, and there was a happy gift for the front 7. All those guys check the box of whoever's coming just has to push Dillon Gabriel off his mark. I don't think you're going to get a lot of sacks in this game because of that, but all you have to do is just force those incompletions, make those windows harder, and allow the secondary to have just a little bit easier time cutting in to get those tips and breakups.
Yeah, I agree, because we've seen at times he is a little bit inaccurate, or he's just been a little wild with the football when he's moved off his spot, because that was my number one thing as well, where Washington, and we know Steve Belichick loves to find ways to blitz and bring different things after quarterbacks, and I know he hasn't been, in the same vein so much so later on the season, but early when there were some problems along the Oregon offensive line, when there was a free rusher, Dillon Gabriel didn't seem like he knew what he wanted to do with the football. There were a lot of times where, he would scramble, or he would try to do a couple of different things, or he'd sometimes turtle up and just take a sack, where that happened multiple occasions. When I look at the Idaho game, I look at the Boise State game, there were points of time where there were some major problems up there. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but if you want to find a way to succeed, find a way to put pressure on him. And we know that Steve Belichick can throw a whole lot of different things at you on the back end of the defense. So if you're able to maybe confuse him with a couple of different looks, and you can force a turnover here, or you can force, all of a sudden a 2nd and 3 turns into a 3rd and 12, whatever it might be, different things like that. If you can find ways to put a little bit of pressure on Dillon Gabriel and move him off his spot and put Oregon behind the sticks a little bit, all of a sudden you've got a puncher's chance.
Exactly. Well, and that gets right into the second point, which is when you get him off his spot, the one thing Washington has not done, especially on the road, get off the field on third down. Like, that is the one where, look, same thing we always say against Oregon. They're going to get their yards. They are going to get points. This isn't going to be a 14-10 ball game by any stretch of the imagination, right? I'll just give you a sneak preview. That is not my score prediction. So, it's going
Stay tuned.
Right, they're going to get their points. But it's a matter of, okay, you can allow them to get to the 50, get to the 45, maybe even get to the 30, but then make Dan Lanning think, hey, you know what, should we go for it on 4th? Should we punt? Should we potentially make Atticus Sappington have a long kick? Those are the small little details they're going to end up factoring in at the end of this game. Now, those details will add up quicker if you don't. So if they're able to go, let's say what Penn State was, where if they go what Penn State does, it's over. Because Penn State was 7 for 7 in the first half, and that's why they got 28 points. And so if you can get in at halftime 14-17, that, in terms of allowing 14 or 17 points, that's fine. Because that means you're forcing at least 1 or 2 punts on those drives and maybe force a turnover somewhere in there. But just either way, find a way to get off the field. Preferably it's going to be on third down because I don't think there's going to be a ton of turnovers in this game. So for me, it's that third down percentage needs to be right around 50 to 45%.
So I like where you're going with that. The one thing I want to make sure that we discuss in that same vein is tackling. Where when you think about this run game, and I've watched Jordan James this season, he's been really, really tough to tackle at times. And I think about what Washington can bring to the table with Carson, Bruener, Khmori, House, Alfonso Tuputala, this linebacker group. If you have an opportunity to take him down one-on-one in space, you have to find a way to make that tackle every single time. I like Robert Balla as a linebackers coach. I think he's done a really good job with this group, and that needs to be the biggest point of emphasis this week. Obviously, it's a huge part of the game, right? And it's just something when I look at what this Oregon rushing attack brings to the table, they're all really good at breaking tackles in their own right. Noah Whittington, Dillon Gabriel's been pretty elusive when he keeps the ball on some scrambles and some read options, whatever it might be. But this linebacker core has the ability to win those battles one-on-one in space. And if you're able to do that, and, even if you're able to just slow them down and let your guys rally to the football and not let him, break arm tackles, do different things like that over the course of the game and keep, a 3-yard gain from turning into all of a sudden it's a 15-yard run because he breaks a tackle, you miss a tackle, whatever it might be, and they keep a drive alive. Those are the little things in this game that really matter, because I'm sure Oregon is going to try to use its big physical offensive line to overpower you. And if you have an opportunity to win, again, I know I've said it 3 times now, but it's that important to win one-on-one in space. You need to do it in this game.
Absolutely. Well, the mind-blowing stat, I'm glad you mentioned, because I totally agree with you that Jordan James is very slippery. And it seems like there's always one Oregon back that just seems to have that kind of trait. Noah Whittington is just not that guy. The crazy part about this is, so I'm going to give you the yardage difference between Jonah Coleman and Jordan James yards after contact.
Okay.
What do you think? Over, I'm going to give you plus or minus 125. Over under.
In terms of the difference between those two?
Yep.
I'm going to go under. I think it's pretty close.
153.
Wow.
So Jonah has 153 more yards after. So that shows how good. So I think the reason why I bring that up is UW has had plenty of opportunities this season playing and practicing against a very slippery running back. Same thing we said in the first segment. They've made missed tackles before. The Penn State game, not a ton, but enough. I think that was just an overall overpowering performance, similar to Iowa, where Caleb Johnson that was lost in the trenches. That was just tackling aside. That was just lost in the trenches. So if you can win in the trenches, and he's only got 44-ish, 49-ish missed tackles for us. So if you can hold that number to 4 or 5 this game, because knowing that he probably would have 6, 7, 8, 9 in terms of a total game like that, those are going to be because it's going to be a very close game. I think again, whoever wins this game, it's not going to be on more than 10 points. And those are the plays where that slippery, 3rd and 4 that he gets 3rd and 3 and then somehow you miss a tackle and it becomes a first down. Those are the drives that are going to separate this game. And so for me, it's, everybody for the most part is healthy, right? I don't think Jedd basically kind of said as much. Where it's like, look, we're getting McHale back. Everybody else is out, has been out. Everybody else has been back, is back. But it's also like, so where does Zach Durfee fit in that equation? Because this is the guy where it's like, this isn't, last little bit before we get to the predictions. This is like, that's the X factor on defense for me, because we like Voy. We know what Valdez can do. Ward's shown he can be good. Russell Davis, all that. We both agree that the setting the edge when it comes to the run game, that is the difference I think that Zach Durfee has made this season. And that's one of those guys where if he can set a good edge and he plays, those missed tackles are harder to come by. If you have somebody else out there, I'm not even going to point a guy out. It's just going to be a lot different and not as good. And so that's going to be the difference for me.
So Lars, I'm really glad you mentioned Zach Durfee, where when I look at him, we know Jedd's talked about that we know how impactful he is when he's on the field. Obviously you and I know that as well, as do the everydayers. But one thing that, has obviously limited him are the injuries, whether it be the turf toe, the shoulder that he had against UCLA. What's that snap count going to look like? That's my biggest question. Because if he's able to produce and play at a high level like we know he can with a full workload, then all of a sudden that changes things. Where, it's not like it's going to massively shift something like, the point spread, thanks to our friends over at FanDuel or anything like that. But it's something where he can make an impact on this game, and he can find a way to just have an impact both as a pass rusher and a run defender, which is going to be critical. And now it's time for everybody's favorite segment. It's time for the bold predictions, which we'll get to right after a message from our good friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch, make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And just heads up to all the everydayers out there, a couple of bets that I still love for the rest of the season. Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year, Josh Allen for MVP. Been on those all season long. Go check out all those odds and so many more over on FanDuel. Lars, I'm pretty sure you're going first this week in the last bold prediction segment of the regular season. So the floor is yours.
Well, I guess I'll take the one that I usually take, which is quarterback stat line. So I'm going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to say Damon ends his first start, projected first start, again, for anybody that may have skipped through the first two segments and wants to just get to my bold predictions and my prediction. Our bold predictions and my prediction, I should say, not my prediction. This isn't a one-sided segment here. But as if Damon does start, which we both presume he will, I'm going to say Damon goes 21 of 29 for 255, 3 touchdowns, one of which will be rushing.
Okay.
So 2 passing,
right.
1 rushing.
That's solid. I like where you're going with that. So let me talk about Denzel Boston then. I've been on this for a while. He has not scored a touchdown since the Iowa game. I've gone with 2+ touchdowns in every week. And again, this is bold predictions. I know. I know that there are going to be the Oregon fans in here being like, oh, that's not happening. Again, bold predictions. When they happen, go us. It's awesome. Give me the 2+ touchdowns for Denzel Boston. I feel like this is one of those games where, again, we're presuming DeMond is going to start, that he's going to turn to him early and often. But on top of that, Lars, I'm gonna stack this one up here. I'm not parlaying this, but I'm going to stack this on top of my second one, because I think that we're also going to see a big day from Jeremiah Hunter, because you and I saw Damon and Jeremiah working very closely throughout the spring, throughout the fall. And this might be a game where if Damon certainly does have the reins and is playing the whole time, that he's going to look to the guy who he's got some really good chemistry with. I think Denzel still scores the touchdowns, but I think Jeremiah Hunter might lead the team in both catches and yards.
I mean, that would be so on brand for the season, to where it's like, hey, where has he been? What's been the case? And then all of a sudden, boom, the last game they all put it together. You know what? If that happens to be the case and it results in a Washington win, cares? Who really cares? Like, that's my best semi-time. I'm not trying that hard, but my point being, like, who really cares at the end of the day? No, I like that though. And for me, so I'm going to go, let's see here. I'm going to go combined sack total for both teams. I'm going to put the over-under at 5.5, because I truly don't think there's going to be a ton of sacks. Like, Damon, I think, will be sacked once or twice, and Dillon Gabriel will be sacked once or twice. So I'm going to say 4 combined sacks for both teams. Russell Davis gets 1. Khmori House gets the other for Washington. I don't care about Oregon. So,
all right. I like where you're going with that. I got another offensive one here. I want to talk about Jonah Coleman as well. Just kind of, go through the normal ones that we do here on these Friday shows. And I think that Jonah could have a really solid day. I think that Oregon is going to try to just let loose on the pass rush. And we know Jonah, as you talked about the yards after contact, he's really good at not only just breaking tackles, but making people miss. So I don't think he's going to get over 20 carries in this game, but I think he has over 20 touches. I think he's going to have a couple of catches on a screenplay, different things like that. So I think he's going to have 115 all-purpose yards and a touchdown.
I like that. I mean, I safe bet for Jonah to get over 100, not because. That's the other thing. Actually, that I'm glad you mentioned Jonah. And I kind of, no offense, wanted to give you Jonah since I took Damon, and like I don't want to take all the
I respect it.
Key players on offense here. But the one thing that stands out to me is look at UW's rushing total against UCLA, a much better run defensive team. Now, I'm not saying they're a better defense, and I'm not saying they're a better team by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying UCLA and Oregon are one and the same here, but I mean, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But I'm not actually saying that. But the point of what I'm getting at here, it's a very gettable number, and I think I would probably throw in Adam Muhammad 5 carries. If Adam can get over 30 yards, maybe get
That'd be fun.
Does Adam have a rushing touchdown on the year?
No.
We're doing this live here. Okay, Adam gets his first rushing touchdown in this game.
All right, I'm going to flip over to the defensive side now. I love taking the leading tackler bet. It's Carson Bruener's last Oregon game. It has to be Carson Bruener in this game. Give me, I think he's going to have a huge day. Give me 12 tackles from Carson Bruener. I think that he's just going to be that guy who's in there on everything. I'm not going to go with, 8 of them are going to be solo or anything like that. No, he's just going to be in there all game long. He's somebody who we know how much passion he has for this program and everything like that. So I can't go anywhere else but with Carson Bruener.
So I like that, but I'm actually going to split. You said 12 total tackles?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not going to work. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 co-tackles then. It's going to be Khmori and Alfonso, both having 6. Not that I don't. Now that's not to discredit. I'm just going to kind of take the other side of that equation. To be clear, I'm just Carson. If this ever gets back to you, this is not against you. This is just taking the other side of that equation, hedging a bet, if you will. Roman's got that side of the bet covered. If I get the other side of the bet covered, it means the show does well. So that's what we're going with here. Because again, this is also, as we mentioned, if we're building to 25. Khmori could have his first memorable Oregon moment here. And you know what? Actually, let me add one more on top of that. Khmori either gets a pick or a forced fumble/fumble recovery in this game. I don't know if he's going to have the Deuce Davis double where he gets the fumble and fumble recovery, but it's going to be one or the other.
So you had a really fun one a couple minutes ago where you said this is how many sacks there are going to be in the game. I have one of those. I've got a really, really bold one here. Turnovers in this game. Bold prediction, 0 turnovers by either team in this game. There's going to be some punts. There are going to be some 4th down conversions. We're not talking about, turnover on downs on 4th down. I'm talking fumbles. I'm talking picks. I think we're not going to see any in this game. And that's my explanation. I think it's going to be a fun game. And as good as both these defenses have shown they can be, I think that these they're going to get their stops, but I don't think they're going to take the ball away.
Well, so that works then because if Khmori forces the fumble, but Oregon recovers their own fumble, we're both all winning here. So, and I don't think I had Damon with no interception. So yeah, and we haven't done an interception one in a while, so we probably should lay off of that. So everybody, before we get to the bold prediction here that always is accurate, never wrong, never misses a day. But with that being said, the one subject we haven't really hit on in the past few games, I think I kind of threw it in against the UCLA game.
I know where you're going with this. Because I was going to say it if you weren't.
The legend of Washington kickers at Autzen Stadium.
Yep.
Peyton Henry made it right in 22 after missing in 19 was it?
18.
18, yeah. By the way, that's a long get up to come back. This has been equally as long of a season for Grady Gross.
Yeah.
Grady goes 2 for 2, 1 from 42, 1 from 37. The 37-yarder may or may not make it a one-possession game at the end. You try the onside kick, you don't get it, and the result falls the way it does. But Grady avenges himself. Can't say he lost to Oregon because of Grady Gross. Damon has a good game, but, maybe the chips fall a certain way, maybe they don't.
So, Lars, that leads us right into your score prediction where you hinted at a one-possession game, which would be Washington covering, which I certainly agree with. I think that's very possible, especially with the spread where it is. But the floor is yours. What is your score prediction?
So, as the degenerate gambler that I am, what the over/under for this game is? Is it 40?
I don't have it in front of me, no.
Okay, so you think it's in the 40s? Is that a fair assessment?
I think it might be a little bit higher.
Okay, so I'll take the under then. So, give me
right.
Oregon 27, Washington 24.
Wow. So Oregon
I
gets
think,
3 points. Wow. All
so,
right.
so Oregon gets the win because, again, at this point, from what we've seen with Washington, if this game was at Husky Stadium, I would feel much more confident about picking an upset. I think they cover the spread. The spread's ridiculous. Now, again, I get it. I totally get it. I'm not here to say that Washington's a 3-point underdog on the road. I'm not saying that. But this team has too much heart. And if you talk about a guy like Jonah potentially coming back, having another 100-yard day, right in there to beat Oregon or be on the line to beat Oregon, I think in that last scenario, I have them down 6. So you cut it to 3. Do you take the points?
Sure.
Do you try and get an onside kick? Whatever Jedd might try and do there. But I think that this game is going to be a lot closer than people think. I can't predict a Washington win. Like, again, it would be great for business, but if anything, being competitive against the number 1 team in the country is still just as good of a selling point as winning. You're not here to take more victories, but it's like, depending on how that comes about, and especially maybe Washington's winning, let's say like 23-20, and then Oregon gets a touchdown, and then Washington gets a 2-for-1 field goal.
Sure.
You can't hang your head negatively about this. Like, dang, we hung with the number 1 team on the road at the very end of the season. That's something.
Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. And please make sure to check out our Locked On Huskies Insider program. The link to that is down in the description below. You get a free 2-week trial, and after that, it's $4.99 a month. We're dropping so much fun stuff, recruiting hints, everything like that. We're going to do a new Insider Q&A somewhat soon where, it's a little more relaxed than a typical show setting. It's a lot of fun. We've gotten some nice feedback about it. So again, link to that is down in the description below. It's a free 2-week trial, and after that, it's $4.99 a month. And all of that, it goes right to your text message inbox. So it's super easy, super convenient, and a lot of fun to get to ask us any questions you might want. And it's just a free-flowing back and forth conversation. But until then, please make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating the channel with new content every single day. So make sure you click that like button, click the little bell, so you never miss when we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, jump right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please leave us 5-star reviews. It does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you after the game.